Love is undeniably the most beautiful emotion in the world. It has the extraordinary ability to connect us, to bind us together in ways that nothing else can. It can lift us to unimaginable heights, making us feel like we're floating on air. But love, as magical as it is, also has a darker side. In an instant, it can drop us to the ground, leaving us shattered and broken, especially when we invest our hearts in the wrong person. True happiness in love is a rare and precious gift, but it's one that eludes us if the person we love doesn't value our affection. Love can be a double-edged sword, capable of bringing immense joy or immense pain. When our love is unappreciated or neglected, it becomes an addiction, something we chase more intensely, only to be left feeling emptier and more broken with each passing day. The more we crave their love, the more we risk losing our dignity and self-respect. We may pour our hearts into someone who neglects, insults, and makes us feel unimportant. But there's an important truth we must embrace: we don't need to be prisoners of this craving. It's time for us to take control of our own happiness and flip the script. In this guide, we will explore 7 powerful psychological strategies that will help us regain our self-worth and command the respect we deserve. From a psychological standpoint, love can be seen as a complex interplay of emotions, thoughts, and behaviors that are deeply rooted in our human need for connection. We are social creatures, wired to seek out relationships that provide us with comfort, security, and a sense of belonging. When we fall in love, our brains release a cocktail of chemicals, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, that create feelings of euphoria and attachment. This is why love can feel so intoxicating, almost like a drug. It lifts us to heights where everything seems possible, where the world is brighter, and life is more vibrant. The first step to creating a more meaningful life is to reclaim our focus. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to scatter our attention to anyone or anything that catches our eye, but doing so dilutes the value of what we have to offer. Our attention, after all, is not an unlimited resource, it's one of the most precious gifts we possess. We shouldn't give it away carelessly or allow just anyone to command it without merit. When we invest our energy and presence in people or situations that haven't earned it, we risk diminishing its worth, almost as if we're saying that what we bring to the table isn't particularly unique or valuable. But love isn't just about these feel-good chemicals. It's also about vulnerability. To love someone is to open yourself up, to expose your heart to the possibility of being hurt. And this is where love's darker side comes into play. When we give our hearts to someone who doesn't appreciate or reciprocate our love, the emotional fallout can be devastating. The pain of unrequited love, of loving someone who doesn't see our worth, can leave us feeling shattered, questioning our own value, and wondering what we did wrong. One of the most challenging aspects of love is the way it can become an addiction when it's not reciprocated. From a psychological perspective, this happens because of the reward systems in our brains. When our love is unappreciated, we often try harder to win the other person's affection, thinking that if we just love them enough, they will eventually come around. This pursuit triggers the release of dopamine, the same chemical involved in addiction, which reinforces our behavior. We become trapped in a cycle of seeking validation from someone who isn't willing to give it, and each time we fail to get the response we desire, we crave it even more. This cycle can be incredibly damaging to our self-esteem and mental health. The more we chase after someone who doesn't value us, the more we lose sight of our own worth. We start to internalize their neglect as a reflection of our inadequacy, leading to feelings of emptiness and despair. Over time, this can erode our self-respect, making us feel unworthy of love and affection. We may begin to tolerate behaviors that are harmful to us, being ignored, belittled, or taken for granted, because we've become so focused on winning their love that we've forgotten to love ourselves. It's important to recognize that love should not come at the expense of our dignity. True love is a reciprocal relationship where both parties see and appreciate each other's value. If we find ourselves constantly giving and not receiving, it's a sign that something is wrong. We need to ask ourselves why we're willing to invest so much in someone who isn't willing to invest in us. Often, this willingness stems from deep-seated insecurities or fears of being alone, which can cloud our judgment and lead us to make choices that aren't in our best interest. One way to break free from this cycle is to start by reclaiming our attention. Our attention is one of the most valuable resources we have, and it's something we should not give away freely. When we give our attention to someone who hasn't earned it, we diminish its value. They may begin to take us for granted, seeing our constant availability as a sign of desperation rather than devotion. By pulling back, by making our attention something that must be earned, we regain our power. We remind ourselves and others that we are not to be taken lightly, that our love and our presence are gifts that must be appreciated. This isn't about playing games or being manipulative, it's about self-respect. When we respect ourselves, we naturally set boundaries that protect our emotional well-being. These boundaries help us to maintain our sense of self-worth and prevent us from getting lost in relationships that aren't healthy for us. By being more selective about where we direct our attention, we ensure that we are surrounded by people who genuinely care about us and are willing to reciprocate our love. Furthermore, this shift in perspective can change the way others see us. When we make our attention something that must be earned, we become more intriguing, more desirable. People are drawn to those who have a strong sense of self and who aren't afraid to set boundaries. This doesn't mean we should be cold or distant, but rather that we should be mindful of how we allocate our emotional resources. When we value our own time and energy, others are more likely to value it as well. In relationships, it's crucial to remember that love is a partnership. Both people need to contribute equally for the relationship to thrive. If one person is constantly giving while the other is only taking, the imbalance will eventually lead to resentment and dissatisfaction. It's essential to communicate openly with your partner about your needs and expectations. If they truly care about you, they will be willing to meet you halfway and work together to create a healthy, loving relationship. However, if you find that your efforts are met with indifference or neglect, it may be time to reconsider the relationship. It's okay to let go of someone who isn't willing to put in the effort to make the relationship work. Holding on to a love that isn't reciprocated can prevent you from finding the love that you truly deserve. Letting go can be painful, but it's often necessary for your emotional well-being. It allows you to make space in your life for someone who will value and appreciate you for who you are. As you navigate the complexities of love, it's important to stay grounded in your own worth. Remember that you are deserving of love, respect, and affection. You don't have to settle for less than you deserve, and you don't have to chase after someone who isn't willing to meet you halfway. True love will come naturally, without the need for games or manipulation. It will be a partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and admiration. It's also important to recognize that love is a journey, not a destination. It's something that we continuously work on, both within ourselves and with our partners. By cultivating self-respect, setting healthy boundaries, and being mindful of where we direct our attention, we can create a foundation for a love that is both fulfilling and sustainable. In doing so, we open ourselves up to the possibility of experiencing love in its truest, most beautiful form, a love that lifts us up, supports us, and brings out the best in us. The next vital lesson we must embrace is the importance of protecting our energy in relationships. It's all too easy to fall into the habit of overextending ourselves, pouring too much time and effort into connections where the other person isn't putting in the same level of commitment. Relationships, by their very nature, are meant to be a collaborative exchange, a partnership where both individuals invest equally in keeping it alive and thriving. It should feel like a dance, with both people moving in rhythm, taking turns to lead and follow. But when we find ourselves being the only ones initiating plans, making sacrifices, and putting in the emotional labor to sustain the connection, we have to take a step back and reevaluate. It's draining to be the one constantly keeping things afloat. Whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, or even a familial bond, if the effort is disproportionately coming from one side, the imbalance becomes palpable. You start to feel the weight of the relationship, and over time, this can lead to feelings of resentment, exhaustion, and frustration. You shouldn't have to be the glue that holds everything together. Both people involved should be willing to contribute to the relationship's well-being. When you realize you're the only one making plans or reaching out, it's a sign that something needs to shift. Allowing others to step up in the relationship is crucial. This isn't about pulling away as a test or using withdrawal as a tactic to manipulate the other person into giving more. It's about fostering a connection where both parties feel responsible for nurturing the relationship. You need to trust that if the relationship is important to the other person, they will take the initiative when given the space to do so. If they don't, that tells you something vital about how much they truly value the connection. We must remember that we can't carry the weight of any relationship alone. It's not sustainable to be the only person reaching out, making plans, or constantly compromising to keep things going. At some point, you'll run out of steam, and it's not your job to endlessly pour from an empty cup. In a balanced and healthy relationship, both parties take turns supporting each other, offering what they can when the other needs it. This balance creates a sense of security and trust because you know that the relationship is a mutual effort, not a one-sided struggle. When we give the other person the opportunity to contribute, we empower them to take responsibility for their role in the relationship. It's a chance for them to show that they care and are willing to put in the work needed to keep the connection alive. And when this happens, it deepens the bond between you, creating a sense of mutual respect and appreciation. A healthy relationship is built on this foundation of shared effort, where both people feel valued for what they bring to the table. There's a delicate balance between giving and receiving in any relationship, and when that balance tips too far in one direction, it's a sign that something is off. It's not about keeping score or being transactional, but rather about ensuring that both people are equally committed to the relationship's growth. When you step back and allow the other person to contribute, it provides clarity about their level of investment. If they step up, it reinforces the connection. If they don't, it highlights the need for a change in dynamics. This process of recalibrating the effort in a relationship isn't always easy. It requires vulnerability and a willingness to accept that the other person may not be as invested as you are. But in the long run, it's better to know where you stand than to continue giving more than you're receiving. It protects your emotional well-being and ensures that you're not pouring your energy into relationships that aren't fulfilling or balanced. By creating this space for the other person to show up, you're also giving yourself the opportunity to see the relationship from a new perspective. Sometimes, when we're so focused on keeping things going, we don't take the time to reflect on whether the relationship is truly serving us. Pulling back allows you to evaluate whether this connection is something that genuinely brings value to your life or whether it's draining you more than it's enriching you. When both people in a relationship are equally invested, the connection becomes stronger and more resilient. There's a sense of trust and safety that comes from knowing that you're not alone in caring for the relationship. Each person knows that they can rely on the other to contribute, and this creates a solid foundation that can weather the inevitable ups and downs of life. In this way, balanced effort becomes the bedrock of a strong, enduring relationship. One of the most powerful things we can do for ourselves is to establish boundaries around how much we're willing to give in a relationship without receiving the same in return. This doesn't mean withholding affection or being cold, it's about ensuring that we're not constantly overextending ourselves to meet the other person's needs at the expense of our own. Healthy boundaries protect us from burnout and ensure that the relationship remains a source of joy and connection, rather than a drain on our energy. In the end, the relationships that matter most are the ones where both people are fully engaged. These are the connections where effort flows naturally between both parties, where each person feels valued and respected for their contributions. When you allow the other person to take on their share of the work, it creates a sense of equality that strengthens the bond and allows the relationship to flourish. If the other person doesn't rise to the occasion when you step back, it's important to recognize that this may be an indication of where their priorities lie. It's not a reflection of your worth, but rather a sign that the relationship may not be as mutually beneficial as you once believed. Letting go of relationships that don't serve you can be difficult, but it ultimately creates space for connections that are more aligned with your needs and values. Ultimately, it's about creating relationships that nourish and uplift you, rather than deplete you. When both people are equally invested, the connection feels effortless and supportive. It becomes a source of strength and joy, rather than something that requires constant effort to maintain. By ensuring that the effort is balanced, you command respect and build a deeper, more meaningful bond with the other person. At the heart of every successful relationship is a commitment to mutual effort. When both parties are willing to contribute equally, the relationship can grow and evolve in a way that feels satisfying for both people. It's this shared investment that creates the foundation for a relationship that is not only strong but also enduring. Let us share with you the story of a man named David. David was a warm, generous guy in his late 20s, known for his easy smile and willingness to lend a hand whenever someone needed it. He had always been the kind of friend you could count on. If anyone called, he was there, whether it was to help move furniture, listen to a problem at midnight, or just hang out and be company when someone felt lonely. It wasn't hard for David to give, it came naturally to him. He valued his relationships and wanted the people around him to feel loved and supported. Among his circle of friends, David had always been closest to Mike. They had known each other since high school, where they bonded over their shared love of sports and music. Over the years, they had gone through a lot together: heartbreaks, job changes, family dramas. Mike had always been a bit more reserved, not great at expressing his feelings, but David never really minded. He enjoyed being the dependable one, the friend who held things together. But as life went on and they both grew older, David began to notice a shift. It wasn't sudden, more like a slow unraveling that he couldn't quite pinpoint at first. Mike started pulling away. He wouldn't respond to texts for days, sometimes weeks. Plans would be made and then cancelled at the last minute. And more, David found himself reaching out, asking how Mike was doing, trying to schedule time to catch up, only to be met with vague excuses and half-hearted responses. At first, David rationalized it. He told himself that Mike was probably just busy with work or going through something personal that he didn't want to talk about yet. David had always been understanding, so he brushed it off, convinced that Mike would come around. But deep down, a small voice inside David started to whisper doubts. He wondered why it felt like he was the only one trying to keep the friendship alive. Every time he reached out and got nothing back, it chipped away at him, just a little bit more. Months passed, and the gap between them widened. David realized he hadn't seen Mike in almost 6 months, despite living in the same city. They used to talk at least once a week, but now, silence had taken over. One evening, David sat alone in his apartment, staring at his phone, wondering if it was worth sending another message. Part of him wanted to hold on to what they had. After all, they'd been friends for years, how could he just let that go? But another part of him, one he had been trying to ignore, felt tired. Tired of always being the one to reach out. Tired of carrying the weight of a friendship that felt one-sided. David wasn't angry at Mike, but he was hurt. He missed his friend, but he couldn't keep pouring himself into a relationship where he wasn't being met halfway. That night, for the first time, David made a decision. He decided to stop chasing. It wasn't an easy choice. David struggled with it. He worried that by pulling back, he might be letting the friendship fade away entirely. But he also knew he needed to protect his own heart. He had spent too long giving and not receiving, and it was beginning to take a toll on him emotionally. So, he decided to let things be. He wouldn't stop caring about Mike, but he would stop trying to force a connection that wasn't being reciprocated. Weeks turned into months. David stayed busy, focusing on his other friendships and his own well-being. He started to see that many of his other relationships were stronger than he had realized, filled with people who showed up for him without him needing to chase after them. He felt lighter, less weighed down by the emotional burden of trying to maintain a friendship on his own. Then, one day out of the blue, David got a text from Mike. It was short and simple, just asking how David had been and whether he wanted to grab a beer sometime. David was surprised but cautiously hopeful. They hadn't spoken in almost a year, and David had made peace with the fact that their friendship might never return to what it once was. But he agreed to meet up. When they finally sat down together at a quiet pub, Mike seemed different, quieter, more introspective. Over a couple of drinks, Mike opened up in a way that David hadn't seen before. He admitted that he had been going through a rough time, feeling overwhelmed by work and personal issues, and that he had withdrawn from everyone, not just David. He apologized for being distant and for not recognizing how much effort David had been putting into their friendship while he had been stuck in his own world. David listened, feeling a mixture of emotions. Part of him was relieved to finally understand why Mike had pulled away, and another part of him felt validated, knowing that it hadn't been his imagination, he had been the one keeping things going for too long. But more importantly, David felt at peace with the fact that he had given Mike the space to come to this realization on his own. Their friendship didn't magically return to what it had been before. There were still gaps to bridge, trust to rebuild, and new boundaries to set. But by stepping back, David had allowed Mike the opportunity to reflect on what their friendship meant to him. And in doing so, he had also learned the value of not overextending himself, of letting relationships flow naturally rather than forcing them. In the months that followed, David and Mike reconnected, but this time it was more balanced. Mike started to reach out more, making plans and checking in. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And for David, that was enough. He had learned that true friendships are built on mutual effort and that sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is let go of the reins and see if the other person is willing to meet you halfway. David's story is a reminder that while relationships take work, they should never feel like a burden carried by only one person. By stepping back and allowing others the space to contribute, we not only protect our own well-being but also give our relationships the chance to grow stronger, more equal, and ultimately more fulfilling. We know that when you're in relationships, you always prefer to be next to your partner. You crave their company and want to share every moment with them. But here's something we don't often talk about enough: how essential it is to strike a balance between togetherness and emotional independence. Sure, love feels better when you're close, but relying too heavily on someone else to navigate your emotions can lead to challenges. That's why we must learn to cultivate emotional independence. Not because we don't need others, but because we need to stand strong on our own. Being emotionally dependent on someone else can start out as comforting. After all, it's human nature to seek support from others. But what happens when the balance shifts and your sense of well-being starts to hinge on someone else's actions or presence? When we depend too much on others for our happiness, we slowly surrender our power to control our emotional state. Our moods start to swing based on their availability or their reactions. This kind of dependence can create tension and strain in a relationship, as the weight of one person's emotional needs starts to press heavily on the other. Instead, imagine the strength that comes from being your own emotional anchor. When life gets tough, and it inevitably will, it's empowering to know that you can steady yourself. Emotional resilience is about being able to face challenges, not because you are unaffected by them, but because you trust yourself to work through them. Developing this kind of resilience doesn't mean shutting people out. It's not about distancing yourself from your partner or becoming cold. It's about being able to handle your own emotions and take care of your own emotional well-being. When you are emotionally self-sufficient, you create a stronger foundation for your relationships. You are not constantly looking to your partner to fix things for you or to pull you out of every emotional low. Instead, you can stand beside them as a complete and stable individual, and that stability allows for a healthier and more equal partnership. Being emotionally strong doesn't make you any less connected to your partner. It enhances the connection because it's built on respect and mutual support, rather than need or dependency. There's a certain magnetism in emotional independence. It's attractive to others because it demonstrates confidence, resilience, and a strong sense of self. When you can manage your emotions and take charge of your own happiness, people are naturally drawn to you. You're seen as someone who is reliable and self-assured, someone who can handle life's ups and downs without crumbling. That kind of strength doesn't just make you a better partner, it makes you a more fulfilled person. Building emotional independence is also about self-respect. When you rely less on others to navigate your emotional world, you start to realize your own worth. You begin to understand that your value isn't tied to how someone else feels about you or how much they do for you. It's rooted in how you feel about yourself, and how you treat yourself in times of difficulty. The more you respect your own emotional journey, the more others will respect it as well. Now, this doesn't mean we should isolate ourselves emotionally or reject the idea of support altogether. Emotional independence is not about shutting down or closing yourself off from those who care about you. It's about finding a balance where you can rely on others when you need to but also trust yourself to handle things independently. You still welcome support, but it's not something you rely on to the point where you feel helpless without it. It's about being able to stand on your own 2 feet, even when someone is standing right beside you. The beauty of emotional self-sufficiency is that it allows relationships to thrive in a healthier way. When you are not leaning too heavily on your partner, they are free to be themselves as well. There's less pressure, less burden, and less expectation placed on them to manage your emotional state. This creates space for both partners to grow individually while still being there for one another. It creates a relationship based on love, respect, and mutual admiration rather than dependence. Emotional independence also opens the door to a deeper kind of connection with others. When you are self-sufficient, you are not approaching relationships from a place of need or lack. Instead, you are coming from a place of wholeness, and that allows for a purer, more genuine connection. You're not constantly seeking reassurance or validation because you already have that inner stability. This gives you the freedom to truly enjoy your relationships, without the fear of losing yourself in them. It's important to realize that emotional strength doesn't just happen overnight. It's something that is cultivated over time, through self-reflection, practice, and sometimes even trial and error. It requires a commitment to yourself, to recognize when you are leaning too heavily on someone else and to pull back when needed. It's about being honest with yourself about your emotional patterns and taking steps to adjust them. Taking responsibility for your own emotional well-being doesn't mean you have to be perfect or that you won't have moments of vulnerability. Vulnerability is a beautiful part of being human, and sharing that with someone you love can create a deep bond. But the key is in balancing that vulnerability with emotional strength. It's about knowing that even when you share your struggles, you have the ability to work through them without needing someone else to fix things for you. In the end, emotional independence doesn't just benefit you, it benefits everyone around you. When you are emotionally self-sufficient, you're able to show up in relationships in a way that is grounded, stable, and confident. You're not weighed down by the fear of losing control over your emotions or the need for constant reassurance. You're able to be present, to listen, and to offer support without expecting anything in return. And that makes you an even more valuable partner, friend, or family member. So, let's embrace the idea of becoming emotionally independent. Let's focus on strengthening our own emotional resilience, so we can better navigate the ups and downs of life. When we stop relying on others to manage our emotions and take control of our own emotional well-being, we not only feel stronger, we become stronger. And that strength will carry us through whatever life throws our way, helping us to build deeper, more fulfilling connections with those around us. The next point we want to share with you, after conducting some surveys and gathering insights from various experiences, is the significance of being prepared to sever ties when we're being treated as less than we deserve. This may be one of the hardest decisions to make, but it's an essential one for preserving our self-worth and personal dignity. It's about setting a clear boundary for how we expect to be treated, and when that boundary is crossed or disrespected, knowing when it's time to walk away. Establishing such a standard is a powerful act of self-respect. We need to remember that every relationship we choose to be a part of should affirm our value, not diminish it. When we allow someone to treat us as a backup plan, we are inadvertently signaling that our needs, feelings, and time are less important than theirs. We deserve to be more than just an option, we deserve to be a priority. This isn't about being demanding or cold-hearted, but about asserting our right to be valued and treated with respect. It's incredibly important that we never settle for less than we deserve. Settling for being treated as an afterthought undermines our confidence and chips away at our sense of self-worth over time. When we stand firm in our belief that we deserve to be treated with kindness and respect, we are not only protecting our dignity but also teaching others how to treat us. This becomes a statement about what we are willing to accept and what we refuse to tolerate in our lives. Now, let's be honest, this isn't easy. Walking away from relationships that don't serve us can be emotionally taxing. It often means letting go of the familiarity of the relationship and facing the unknown. Yet, this step is crucial for our emotional well-being. By walking away, we are choosing to value ourselves over the comfort of staying in a situation that doesn't honor who we are. It's not about cutting people off impulsively but about making intentional choices that prioritize our mental and emotional health. When we take that step and walk away, we're not just doing it for ourselves. It sends a clear message to others about how we expect to be treated. People will learn that we will not tolerate being undervalued. This act of self-preservation radiates outward, influencing how others see us. It forces them to adjust how they treat us or risk losing our presence in their lives. And that's a powerful thing, to know that by valuing ourselves, we encourage others to value us too. Of course, this isn't about being unkind or vindictive. It's about recognizing our own worth and understanding that sometimes, we need to remove ourselves from situations that aren't healthy. We have to be our own advocates. No one else will prioritize our needs and emotions if we don't first make it clear that we expect nothing less than respect. It's an act of strength, not weakness, to walk away from those who fail to treat us with the regard we deserve. When we finally do make the decision to walk away from someone who continuously disregards our feelings or treats us as insignificant, something profound happens. We regain control of our narrative. No longer are we left waiting for someone else to change or hoping they will start to see our value. Instead, we take back our power, showing that we won't stick around for anything less than what we truly deserve. And here's the truth, when we walk away, we often realize how much energy we've been wasting on relationships that don't fulfill us. We begin to see that the constant struggle to be seen, heard, and appreciated has been draining us far more than the thought of letting go. That realization is both freeing and empowering. We start to feel lighter, and that space we've cleared by removing toxic relationships allows for new, healthier connections to enter. Moreover, the act of walking away can sometimes inspire those around us to reflect on their own behavior. While the goal of ending a relationship shouldn't necessarily be to prompt change in others, the reality is that it often does. Sometimes, people need that shock of losing someone important to realize the ways they've taken them for granted. And while that might lead to change, the key is that our decision wasn't dependent on someone else's growth, it was based on our commitment to our own self-worth. This is also a lesson in knowing our boundaries. When we establish clear lines about what is and isn't acceptable, we create a blueprint for how others should treat us. Relationships shouldn't be about testing our patience or endurance but about mutual respect and appreciation. It's not about setting impossible standards but ensuring that the people we allow into our lives align with our values and contribute positively to our emotional well-being. Let's also talk about the power of trusting ourselves. Walking away requires us to have confidence in our own judgment. It means believing that we know what is best for us and being willing to act on that knowledge, even when it's hard. We often second-guess ourselves, wondering if we're overreacting or being too sensitive. But deep down, we usually know when something isn't right. Learning to trust that instinct is a crucial part of protecting our self-respect. By choosing ourselves, we also open the door to more authentic relationships. When we make space by cutting ties with those who don't treat us well, we invite new people into our lives, people who will respect, cherish, and support us. The act of walking away becomes a way of clearing out the old to make room for the new. It's an act of faith in ourselves and in the idea that we deserve better. We also shouldn't underestimate the impact of this choice on our overall well-being. When we hold on to relationships that devalue us, we're constantly carrying around stress and anxiety. Letting go of those connections allows us to breathe easier and focus on the relationships that bring us joy and fulfillment. It's not just about emotional well-being, it's about holistic health, mental, emotional, and even physical. At the end of the day, valuing ourselves isn't just about walking away from bad situations, it's about creating a life filled with relationships that honor and uplift us. It's about building a community around us that reflects our worth and supports our growth. And the first step to doing that is by knowing when to walk away from those who can't meet us where we are. The ability to walk away when we're being treated as unimportant is an essential practice of self-love. It shows that we believe in our own worth and that we're willing to protect it, even when it's difficult. It teaches us that sometimes, the greatest act of love we can offer ourselves is the decision to say, no more, and to walk toward something better. No one can say or define what love exactly is, but we learn every day to navigate its many shades and layers. In the same way, we have to stop seeking validation from others. So often, we find ourselves searching for approval, a subtle nod or smile that tells us we're on the right path or that we're worthy of love and respect. But the reality is, our worth is not something that can be handed to us by another person. It is something that resides within, and it is up to us to discover it, nurture it, and allow it to guide us. We need to recognize that our value isn't tied to someone else's opinion of us. It's tempting to let the opinions of others dictate how we see ourselves, especially in a world where external validation seems to be a form of currency. We seek out compliments, likes, and affirmations, hoping they'll make us feel whole. But chasing after these fleeting affirmations only leads us further from the truth. Our self-worth cannot be determined by someone else's standards or judgments. It must come from a deep understanding of who we are and what we stand for. When we stop waiting for others to validate us and start validating ourselves, something profound happens. We tap into a strength that was always there but may have been buried under layers of doubt and insecurity. This shift in mindset is transformative. It's like we suddenly realize that we've been holding the key to our own empowerment all along. And as we step into this new way of thinking, we begin to feel a sense of freedom that can't be shaken by outside forces. The beauty of self-assurance is that it radiates outwards. When we're no longer dependent on someone else's approval, it changes the way people perceive us. They start to see us differently, recognizing the quiet confidence that comes from someone who knows their worth. We are no longer fragile, hanging on to every word or gesture in search of validation. Instead, we stand tall, comfortable in our own skin, and this commands respect. Respect, after all, isn't something we can demand. It's something we earn through the way we carry ourselves. When we are self-assured, we project an energy that others can't help but notice. We become the kind of person people want to be around, not because we seek their approval but because we exude a quiet strength. This strength, born of self-respect, draws people in. They see us as equals, as people who are not easily swayed by the opinions of others, but who are grounded in their own beliefs and values. By embracing self-validation, we begin to shift the dynamics of our relationships. No longer are we chasing after someone's approval or molding ourselves to fit their expectations. We enter into relationships as whole individuals, confident in who we are and what we bring to the table. This allows us to build healthier, more balanced connections with others, based on mutual respect and understanding rather than the need for validation. When we rely on self-assurance, we give ourselves the permission to make choices that align with our values and beliefs, even if they go against the grain. We are no longer afraid of judgment or rejection because we know that our worth is not up for debate. This inner confidence allows us to live authentically, with the courage to pursue what truly matters to us without being swayed by external pressures. It's not easy to let go of the need for external validation. It takes time to unlearn the habits of seeking approval that may have been ingrained in us for years. But with practice, we can learn to trust ourselves and our own judgment. We begin to realize that our value doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's opinion. It remains constant because it comes from within. The power of self-validation also lies in its ability to protect us from the emotional ups and downs that come with seeking approval from others. When we place our worth in someone else's hands, we are at their mercy. One day they may lift us up, and the next day they may tear us down. But when we validate ourselves, we remain steady. We are no longer on that emotional roller coaster because we have learned to be our own source of affirmation. Another beautiful outcome of self-validation is that it opens the door to self-compassion. When we stop looking to others to tell us that we're enough, we begin to treat ourselves with the kindness and respect we deserve. We become more forgiving of our mistakes and more accepting of our imperfections. We realize that we don't need to be perfect to be worthy, we just need to be true to ourselves. This shift in mindset not only benefits us personally but also impacts those around us. When we embrace self-validation, we set an example for others. We show them what it looks like to live confidently and authentically, without the need for constant approval. This can inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect of empowerment. The journey to self-assurance is not linear. There will be moments of doubt, and that's okay. But the important thing is to keep coming back to that place of inner strength. To remind ourselves that we are enough, just as we are. And as we continue to practice self-validation, we will find that it becomes easier and more natural over time. So, as we move forward, let us make a commitment to ourselves, to stop seeking validation from others and to start looking inward. Let us remind ourselves daily that we are enough, and let that inner confidence guide us in everything we do. When we embrace this truth, we not only transform ourselves but also the world around us, creating stronger, more authentic connections and a life filled with purpose and meaning. Are you curious about the delicate balance of love and care, and how to navigate this intricate dance with wisdom and grace? It's something that requires careful thought and attention, for love is one of the most precious gifts we can offer another person. Yet, in our eagerness to connect, we might be tempted to give all of ourselves too quickly, to reveal the full depth of our affection before it's truly earned. This, however, can be a misstep. When we offer everything at once, we risk becoming predictable, perhaps even taken for granted. The very essence of our love, which should be treasured and revered, may lose its luster if not given with careful consideration. It's not about withholding affection or playing mind games, far from it. It's about understanding the value of what we have to offer and ensuring that it is appreciated. Love, after all, is not something to be squandered lightly. It's an emotion that should be given thoughtfully, with intention and purpose. By holding back just a little, by not showing all of our cards right away, we allow the other person to experience the excitement of discovery. They begin to see us as a complex individual, someone with layers to uncover and depths to explore. This approach doesn't diminish the love we feel, rather, it enhances its significance. When we take our time, offering our affection in measured doses, it creates a sense of intrigue. The other person begins to wonder, to yearn for more, to appreciate the moments of closeness all the more because they are not always guaranteed. This doesn't mean we're being manipulative, instead, we're cultivating a relationship where our love is seen as something special, something worth cherishing. The mystery we maintain isn't about deception, it's about allowing the other person the joy of earning our affection, of feeling that they have won something valuable. By not rushing to expose the full extent of our feelings, we give the relationship room to grow naturally. The other person becomes more invested, more eager to understand us, to uncover the depths of our emotions. They begin to chase the feeling of being loved by us, and in that chase, they come to see our worth more clearly. We move from being just another presence in their life to someone who truly matters, someone they feel fortunate to know. The effort they put into earning our love makes it all the more meaningful when they do receive it. This approach to love isn't about creating distance, it's about fostering a deeper connection, one built on mutual respect and appreciation. When we give too much too soon, there's a risk that our love may be taken for granted, that the other person might not fully grasp its value. But by holding back just a little, we encourage them to see us in a different light, as someone worth the effort, someone whose love is a gift, not a given. This doesn't mean we're being cold or unfeeling, it simply means we recognize our own worth and want it to be fully appreciated. In any relationship, it's important to maintain a sense of balance. If we're too eager to please, too quick to offer everything we have, we may unintentionally diminish our own value in the eyes of the other person. But by being mindful of how much we give and when we give it, we keep the relationship dynamic and alive. The other person learns to see us as someone special, someone they want to win over, rather than someone they can easily take for granted. This sense of mystery, of not always being fully known, keeps the relationship exciting and keeps the other person engaged. This isn't about withholding love, it's about offering it in a way that ensures it is truly appreciated. When we make someone work for our affection, they learn to value it more. They come to see us not just as another person in their life, but as someone who brings something unique and irreplaceable. This sense of being valued, of being seen as special, strengthens the bond between us and makes the relationship more fulfilling for both parties. It's also important to consider our own feelings in this equation. When we hold back just a little, we give ourselves the opportunity to assess the relationship, to see how the other person responds to our gestures of affection. Are they willing to put in the effort to win our love? Do they appreciate what we offer, or do they take it for granted? These are important questions, and by pacing ourselves, we allow the answers to reveal themselves naturally over time. Love is a powerful emotion, and when it's given freely and without restraint, it can be overwhelming, both for us and for the other person. By showing our love in measured ways, we create a space where it can be fully appreciated. The other person is not just receiving our love, they are earning it, and in doing so, they come to understand its true value. This doesn't mean we're playing hard to get, it means we're being wise about how we share our heart. In holding back, we also protect ourselves from potential hurt. When we give too much too soon, we make ourselves vulnerable to being taken for granted. But by offering our love gradually, we ensure that it is met with the respect and appreciation it deserves. We allow the other person to show us that they are worthy of our affection, that they truly value what we have to offer. Ultimately, this approach to love is about self-respect. It's about recognizing that our love is a precious gift, one that should be given thoughtfully and with care. When we show restraint, when we allow the other person to wonder about the depth of our feelings, we elevate our own worth in their eyes. We become someone special, someone worth the effort, someone they are eager to keep in their life. So, in the end, it's not about playing games or being manipulative, it's about understanding the value of what we have to offer and ensuring that it is truly appreciated. By keeping a bit of mystery, by letting the other person chase our love, we create a relationship that is rich, dynamic, and deeply fulfilling. We become more than just another person in their life, we become someone they truly value, someone they are grateful to know. This is the power of mindful love, of giving our hearts wisely and with intention. As we conclude this guide, we should ask ourselves whether we are willing to be the prioritized, loved individuals we deserve to be, or if we will continue to settle for less. We challenge everyone to make a commitment to themselves, to promise that they will be the person who does not seek love from others but who creates their own happiness. By embracing these strategies, we empower ourselves to take control of our lives, command respect, and build relationships that are healthy, balanced, and fulfilling. If you're ready to become stronger and more self-assured, to receive unfiltered and powerful wisdom, stay with us on this journey. Let's keep moving forward, together, and become the best versions of ourselves. Thank you for your time and see you in the next video.